Hey guys, tonight we begin high above the sprawling Aztec capital of Tenochtitlan. You're not standing on a street, or even on a balcony, but at the very top of a mighty step pyramid, known as a teocalli. The warm stone beneath your feet hums with incense, the scent of burning copal dancing on the air like sweet smoke from another realm. In the distance, the stars shimmer above Lake Texcoco, their light bouncing off obsidian waters like restless ghosts. Below, the city twinkles with firelight and drums, always those distant drums. But up here, you're invited to something exclusive, something regal, something revolting. This is no ordinary dinner party. The guests, feather-robed nobles and jade-studded priests, the venue. A blood-streaked temple toppled to still sticky from the morning sacrifice. The food. Let's just say you probably won't survive this. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do. And don't forget to drop your location and local time in the comments. I love knowing where you're listening from. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Your senses tighten. The music below throbs deeper now, sensing with your pulse. You hear conch horns blaring, smell roasted maize wafting up from the temple kitchens. But something else cuts through coppery, warm, not quite meat, not quite incense. You glance sideways. That's no pork roasting beside the sweet potatoes. And you've got a golden cup in your hand filled with zoklitl, a bitter, spicy chocolate drink once thought to fuel warriors and seduce queens. It's thick, gritty, and wait, was that a fleck of bone? No one around you flinches. This is the moonlit banquet of blood. Behind you, a priest's headdress towering, his face painted to resemble a skull, recites blessings. Each word is punctuated by a sprinkle of something red from a tiny obsidian bowl. You already know what it is. And yep, it's blood. Human blood, most likely. Probably from the unfortunate soul who graced this very altar just hours ago. Historians still argue whether all noble feasts included ritual bloodletting, or only the state-sanctioned religious ones. But you're living this moment now, and the answer's clear. It's definitely happening here. You're handed a plate fashioned from polished shell. On it, a crisp masa cake topped with a mix of beans, chili, and your told delicacies. You spot something that looks like a tiny, curled hand. You don't ask. You're trying to be polite. The nobles laugh softly, their obsidian jewelry clinking as they lean in to exchange gossip over bites of chinicule worms and perhaps something more sentient. You're sweating under your ceremonial cloak. Not just from the heat, but from the realization that you're the only person not enjoying this. There's a tradition, you learn, called the teocalli, a kind of corn tamal, infused with bits of flesh from war captives, believed to pass on bravery and spiritual strength. Whether this one's authentic, or a vegetarian remix, you're not asking. One bite in, and your brain screams at you to not think too hard about the chewy bits. And yet, this wasn't considered grotesque by the nobles. It was reverent, sacred. The act of eating, especially something touched by sacrifice, was a spiritual recycling. Life into life. Blood into glory. Oddly enough, it reminds you of modern debates on communion rituals, but tonight's communion is crunchy, spicy, and might contain someone's cousin from the coast. One noble woman waves you over. Her face is painted with red lines, meant to channel the goddess of fertility. She offers you a gourd bowl of thick stew. It smells like fish and flowers, which seems innocent enough until she mentions it was cooked in the same pot once used to boil down the hearts of enemies. You blink. She laughs. Choke. Maybe. Hard to tell in a culture where satire and sincerity often wore the same mask. The musicians play faster now. A flute trills, sharp and high. Dancers swirl near the edge of the platform, their skirts brushing against dried blood trails that have hardened like lacquer. One of them tosses you a bit of toasted amaranthus, a holy grain, now flavoured with lime, and just a dash of dried insects. Protein, they say. Sustainable, they say. Disgusting, you whisper. Still, you chew. The stars rotate above you, lazy and indifferent. And you realize, strangely, that this isn't a horror show for these nobles. This is joy. This is culture. This is divine cuisine. And you? You're the guest of honor. Or maybe the honored guest. Or maybe just being fattened up. But hey, when in Tenochtitlan, right? The feast swells. You're still seated at the temple's edge, but your shell plate is quickly whisked away and replaced with something even more dazzling, an obsidian platter inlaid with golden veins. It gleams under the moonlight like it was forged for a god. You half expect a dove to fly out when the lid is lifted. But no doves. Just something that looks like a stew and also, confusingly, a sculpture. The noble beside you grins as you peer into the bowl. Inside, braised lizard meat curls around roasted axolotl, strange, otherworldly amphibian native to the lake below. It stares up at you with a face that's halfway between a baby and an alien. You poke it with your fork. Yes, it jiggles. This, you're told, is a high delicacy. Only the nobility, priests, and the emperor himself can consume such sacred creatures. They are thought to hold regenerative power. Which makes sense, you guess, since axolotls do regrow limbs, and here you are, eating one in honor of that fact. Historians still argue whether these ingredients were truly reserved for elites or if commoners had limited ritual access to them. But one thing's clear, this isn't your standard lake stew. Beside the bowl sits a crisp patty made of roasted amaranth, honey, and you're pretty sure a crushed bone. You don't want to ask if it's human. Again, everyone's laughing, so you laugh too, just enough to blend in, not enough to taste it. The nobles begin to boast, not with words, but with garnishes. One lord gestures toward his dish with pride. It's roasted agouti, a kind of giant jungle rodent, served on a slab of jade. The garnish. Fresh orchids and edible gold flakes. Another shows off his chili-dusted tarantulas. 8 legs curled up like blackened crab claws. Spicy crunch, he says, popping one into his mouth. Even the drink was loud. Your cup has changed again, this time a carved gourd painted with vibrant serpents. You sip. Fermented cacao, thick with chili and maize froth, coats your tongue like velvet dipped in fire. Then comes a second note, smoky, sour, and... was that a hint of bone marrow? You're informed it's flavoured with the ashes of a revered ancestor. Not metaphorically. Literally. Still feeling hungry. An elderly priestess, ears weighed down by obsidian disc, leans close to tell a joke about a general who once lost his battle because he ate too many feathered tamales before combat. The nobles chuckle. You can't tell if the story is true, but your stomach's already agreeing with the general. Feathered tamales do not sit light. Suddenly, a parade of servants climbs the stairs, balancing wide platters covered in woven mats. They move in rhythm, each step timed to the drums, and when they reach the top, the mats are pulled away, revealing towers of meat wrapped in banana leaves, smoked fish stuffed with herbs, and something truly jaw-dropping, a roasted human thigh, dressed with orange blossoms and agave syrup, glazed to an almost carnival shine. Nobody gasps, not even her little. You watch as the thigh is sliced with an obsidian blade so sharp it could split air. The meat is laid onto ceremonial tortillas, sprinkled with white sage, and handed to select nobles, those who participated in that day's battle or ritual. You're not offered a piece. You're relieved. The man beside you, a lord with teal-painted cheeks, makes eye contact and smirks. Don't worry, he says. You're new. But wait until the third feast. You nod and pretend to know what that means. Spoiler, you don't. Some of these feasts, you learn, are coded with status rules so complex they make modern fine dining look like a backyard cookout. Who sits where? What plate they get? What cloth their food is wrapped in? Even how they chew. One noble woman, dripping in turquoise beads, takes each bite with deliberate slowness, pausing between morsels to fan herself with a feathered palette made from hummingbird wings. You want to roll your eyes, but honestly, it's working for her. Others, though, are less refined. You spot a general gnawing on a charred rabbit head like it owes him money. And then there's the Tlatoani, the emperor. He hasn't arrived yet, but the entire platform seems to lean in anticipation. His chair, studded with gold and mother of pearl, waits at the far edge of the feast. It's flanked by 2 guards dressed as jaguars, actual jaguar skins, teeth and all. The Emperor's arrival, you're told, marks the start of the sacred toast. That's when the really weird drinks come out. But before that happens, you're handed one more dish. This one's tiny. Just a sliver of roasted chili filled with a paste of mashed flowers, beans, and at this ground obsidian powder. Supposedly, it cleanses the soul. You think it's more likely to cleanse your intestines. You eat it anyway. Because here, being polite isn't just etiquette, it's survival. You wipe your lips on the edge of your cotton sleeve, big mistake. The sleeve is embroidered, sacred, and now smeared with whatever ungodly sauce was on that last dish. A servant spots it instantly. He doesn't say a word, just raises a silent eyebrow and scuttles off to fetch a replacement garment. You're not sure if you've committed a faux pas or a minor spiritual offense. Then it begins, the sweating. You're gently ushered away from the feast, led down a narrow stone corridor tucked behind the temple side. 2 torchbearers flank you. The air thickens, humid and heady, smelling of sage, resin, and something else. Something musky. You're taken to a squat, domed structure, the Teocalli or Aztec sweat lodge. Think ancient spa treatment meets full-body exorcism. The inside is dark. The floor radiates heat from stones baked all day under the sun. A healer greets you with a thin smile and no words. He pours water over the red-hot stones, and instantly the space fills with steam so hot and dense you feel your eyelashes curl. Why are you here? Because it's tradition. Nobles don't eat specially not sacred meals until their spiritual impurities have been sweated out. Clean body, clean soul, clean digestion. That's the theory. Historians still argue whether this was strictly a religious rite, or if it doubled as elite wellness culture like a pre-Columbian. But in the moment, you're not thinking about Gwyneth Paltrow. You're thinking about how fast your paws are trying to leap off your skin. The healer fans you with a bundle of herbs, marigold, copal, and maybe a hint of chili leaves. The scent is intoxicating, like breathing in a bonfire dipped in honey. He mutters prayers. You catch a few words, Tlaloc, Xochitl, Itzli, gods of rain, flowers, and obsidian blades. Charming combo. You try to relax, focus on your breath. But then someone slaps your back with a wet cloth and shouts out, "Time's up." You're drenched, glowing, slightly dizzy, and spiritually cleansed or at least well marinated. Back at the temple platform, the feast is in full swing again. And now, you're allowed to eat with the inner circle. The difference is immediate. Better cushions, better lighting, fresher flowers on the table. And the food? Oh, the food. A servant brings you tamalitos de sangre, small blood tamales wrapped in banana leaves, spiced with epazote, and hints of smoked deer. You chew slowly. It's not bad. Kind of like barbecue, if barbecue were legally questionable. Then, a bowl of soup appears. It looks innocent, clear broth with tiny white cubes floating inside. You ask what they are. The noble beside you answers without blinking, clotted goat's milk fermented for 12 days. Blessed by a priest. Sometimes we add fingernails. You try to laugh. He doesn't. The emperor still hasn't arrived. Apparently, he bathes in a private Teocalli, first this lined with crushed turquoise and rose petals. You envy him for a moment, until you realize his sweat lodge probably includes fasting, bloodletting, and political meetings. Now fully reseated, you notice that many nobles are fanning themselves with long wooden paddles, not for the heat but to ward off flies. The smell of roast meat, fermented drinks, and burning herbs is too much for the insects to resist. One noble even wears a necklace strung with tiny garlic bulbs to keep them away. You doubt its effectiveness, but it makes a bold fashion statement. Then comes the bone plate. Flat, rectangular, and carved from a human shoulder blade, maybe ceremonial. Maybe not. This platter holds one item, a bite-sized cake made of cornmeal, pigweed, crushed chilies, and what's described as ritual grease. You don't ask for clarification. You eat it. Because by now, your senses are numb. The line between disgusting and divine has blurred into something. Aztec. Remember the sweat lodge? Yeah, That wasn't just about cleanliness. It was also a status check. Those who couldn't survive its heat weren't considered fit to dine at the upper tables. You did. Barely. But now you're one of them, whatever them really means. A man in jaguar skins approaches. His mouth is stained purple from some kind of ceremonial berry. He offers you a drink that fizzes gently pulp, fermented from maize sap and thick as yogurt. It tastes like sour milk and dreams gone wrong. You sip, smile, and nod. Suddenly, the drums shift rhythm. The nobles hush. The air vibrates. As here. The emperor steps onto the temple platform. Right. Silent. Cloaked in a shimmering robe made from hummingbird feathers, each one iridescent and impossibly fine. His face is calm, unreadable. He raises a cup of obsidian filled with blood chocolate and tilts it toward the moon. Everyone mimics the gesture. You do too. And in that moment, sweaty, dazed, probably semi-delirious, you almost believe you belong. The moonlight kisses the rim of your obsidian cup. Around you, the nobles drink in solemn silence, heads tilted back, the thick, warm mixture of chocolate and blood sliding down their throats like molten shadow. You hesitate just for a breath before joining them. The taste is complex, earthy, bitter, faintly metallic. Not terrible, not delightful, but undeniably sacred. The texture coats your tongue like velvet soaked in soot. You lower your cup and glance around. Nobody's talking yet, because this part of the feast isn't for gossip. It's a ritual, one that blends hunger with holiness, flavor with fear. It's time to honor the sacred trinity maize, cacao, and blood, the pillars of Aztec cosmology. Each one represents something vital. Maize, the body. Cacao, the soul. Blood, the sacrifice. To eat them together is to reenact creation itself. Or so the priests say. Historians still argue whether the blood in these drinks came from ritual donors, war captives, or more disturbingly volunteers from the nobility themselves. You don't ask. You've learned by now. Some flavors are better left unexamined. A young noble seated beside you begins to chant softly, voice barely above a whisper. The words flow like syrup, winding through your ears and into your spine. He sings of Teocalli, goddess of sustenance, and how she cried tears of maize when humankind first begged for food. Those tears, he says, watered the first fields, and what grows from those fields must always be honored with blood. You're offered a tortilla just one, but it's no ordinary tortilla. It's dyed red with annatto and shaped like a sacred glyph. You place it gently on your tongue. It tastes of corn and something else, a powder that makes your teeth tingle. Crushed chili seeds, ground obsidian. You can't tell, but your lips buzz. Then come the maize dolls. Servants appear with trays of tiny human-shaped figures made of ground corn and honey. Each is decorated with dots of red, more symbolic blood. Or not symbolic. No one specifies. These dolls represent the gods themselves, and to bite them is to participate in a divine communion. You're handed one with a faint smile. You bite off its head. The inside is filled with a paste of dried squash seeds, cactus pulp, and toasted ants. You chew slowly. The ants pop like tiny seeds of smoke. And yes, you eat the whole thing. The nobles start to loosen up again. Voices rise. Anne's gesture. A new wave of dishes arrives, each one celebrating some version of this maize cacao blood trinity. There's a toll, a thick porridge made from masa and water, this version simmered with dark chocolate and sweetened with fermented maize. It's surprisingly comforting, like a smoky rice pudding. You catch yourself enjoying it before you remember what might be floating in it. Next comes tsole, a bar of popped amaranth and honey that looks like a modern granola snack if granola snacks had ceremonial bone charms pressed into them like fortune cookies from the underworld. Then there's nekuatl, a syrup of maize sap and cacao, drizzled over baked maize cakes shaped like skulls. The noble next to you licks his fingers after every bite. You decide not to follow his example. One priest stands and lifts a clay bowl filled with warm, frothy liquid. It's handed around the table. Everyone takes a sip and murmurs a word to Nonan, they say. Our maize mother. When it reaches you, you sip too. It's warm, sour, and vaguely buttery. Kind of like drinking corn flavoured. You get left in the sun. Still, there's something hypnotic about it. You feel your pulse slow, your breath deepen. Remember, a nearby noble whispers, what comes from the earth must return to it, even us. You nod solemnly, as if you've always known that. There's a strange comfort in the idea of this endless loop of nourishment and sacrifice. To them, it's not disgusting. It's balance. But let's not get too dreamy. Your next dish looks like it was fished out of a volcano. It's a maize cake stuffed with red beans, chili, and something called sickly or rubbery, chewing gum like resin made from tree sap. The nobles chew it ceremonially, not for taste but to bind the body to the breath. You give it a try. It squeaks between your teeth like resin-flavoured chewing rubber. Gross. But again, spiritual. And of course, no sacred feast is complete without the food being burned, too. A portion of every dish, however rare, is tossed into the ceremonial fire pit as an offering. You watch roasted, corn, blood chocolate, and bits of axolotl vanish into smoke. The smell is oddly floral. The fire crackles. The nobles chant. You feel drowsy. Or maybe it's the altitude. Or maybe it's the wine you didn't realize was spiked with hallucinogenic mushrooms. Oops. You lean back on your cushion and gaze at the stars again. They seem closer now. Or maybe they're watching. Either way, your plate is refilled. Because in the empire of the Aztecs, the feast never ends. Not until the gods are full. The drums shift again, this time harder, faster. A low thrum like thunder rolls through your chest. The nobles look up from their plates as a new group of servants climbs the stone steps, bearing platters not of maize, not of chocolate but of something darker. You know what's coming. You've heard the whispers all evening. The centerpiece. The cannibal hors d'oeuvres. No one calls it that, of course. The nobles use gentler terms: blessed flesh, sacred meat, or, more poetically, divine remainder. But whatever it's called, what's being served is very much human. Well, allegedly. Historians still argue over whether these infamous accounts of Aztec ritual cannibalism are exaggerated by Spanish chroniclers, used to justify their own brutal conquest. Some say these stories were embellished. Others insist they're entirely true, and the bones unearthed from temple sites suggest something did happen here. Something with knives, and feasts, and flesh. Tonight, you're not debating. You're observing. The servers unveil the dishes. Roasted ribs, bone-in, stacked on polished obsidian slabs. Strips of cured muscle wrapped in corn leaves like jerky. Tiny tartlets of marrow and herbs, cooked in clay moulds, shaped like skulls. The nobles lean forward, alert and reverent. This isn't casual snacking. This is performance. Ceremony. Gratitude. According to their belief, the consumed were warrior-shonored captives who had proven their strength in battle and offered themselves to the gods. To me, turned. Portion of such a person was to absorb their courage, their essence, their connection to the divine. You try not to breathe too deeply. The scent is heavy, meaty, sweet, a little burnt. It's no different than a cookout, except, well, you know, you're not offered a piece. They get. Perhaps they know you're not ready. Perhaps you're the after-dinner entertainment. A priest approaches with a bowl of bright red sauce. He dips his fingers in, flicks it toward the table, whispering a blessing. You flinch when a drop hits your cheek. It smells like chili and iron. And just as quickly as it begins, the mood shifts again. The dishes vanish. The nobles lean back, quiet. They've tasted the sacred. Their faces are calm. Some smile faintly, as if pleased by the warmth blooming in their stomachs. You, meanwhile, sit frozen. Did you just witness a divine ritual, the world's most disturbing potluck? A young noble breaks the silence with a toast. He raises his cup and shouts a single name. Huitzilopochtli, sun god, patron of war and sacrifice. Everyone echoes him, and together they drink. You do too, because at this point, You're too deep in the ritual to bow out. Your next course is mercifully less intense: grilled cactus paddles with smoked grasshoppers, drizzled in honey chili glaze. Honestly, not bad. Crunchy, nutty, distractingly normal. Then comes chapulaines conflore de calabaz, a mixture of toasted grasshoppers and squash blossoms, served inside a hollowed gourd. The texture is wild, soft petals and crispy limbs. You're starting to realize the Aztecs were big on textural contrast and shock value. And still, the feast continues. Another platter is unveiled. This one carries small, rolled leaves stuffed with a reddish paste. You nibble cautiously. It's smoky, spicy and faintly metallic. The noble beside you grins. Mixed with the ashes of our bravest warrior, he says. You choke politely. Relax, he adds, with a wink. Only a pinch. Every bite tonight is a lesson in discomfort. A challenge to your instincts. And yet, you notice something stranger. There's a rhythm to it. A sacred absurdity. Like a dance choreographed to confuse and enlighten you at the same time. Even the jokes reflect this tension. A priest tells a story about a feast so lavish that the guests wept from joy until they realized the meat was their own relatives, reincarnated as food. Everyone laughs. You laugh too, but you're not entirely sure it's a joke. There's no horror here. No disgust. Only awe. Because in Aztec eyes, this is not desecration. It's transformation. The body returns to the earther, to the godser, tonight to the belly of a noble. It's humbling. In a nauseating sort of way. And while you might not be chewing the sacred meat yourself, you're part of the ritual now. You've sipped the blood chocolate. You've eaten the maize doles. You've sweated your sins and swallowed your fear. You're no longer just a visitor. You're an initiate. And the feast is far from over. Your cushion sinks deeper beneath you now, damp from sweat and sauce, the scent of charred offerings still lingering in your hair. You blink slowly, your senses dulled by the relentless flow of spiced drinks, sacred stews and ceremonial confusion. And yet, the night sharpens again because something new is approaching. A roar rises from the lower courtyard. Drums. Horns. The thunder of footsteps. The procession is climbing the stairs, and the nobles straighten their backs as if summoned by some invisible command. They are here. The warriors. These aren't soldiers returning from battle. Now these are veterans of that morning's sacrificio, fresh from the sacred battlefield of the pyramid's summit. Their armor is tattered, their faces still painted with streaks of ochre and coal, their eyes glassy from whatever they've seen or done. And now they're ready to feast. You notice a shift. The tone grows looser, the air a little less reverent. These warriors are not here for soft petals and corn dolls. They're here to devour. Historians still debate whether the line between sacred and savage blurred intentionally at these post-battle meals. Were they truly divine rites, or barely contained bloodlust under a thin veneer of ceremony? You're beginning to understand the answer might be both. The warriors toss down their shields and drop to the banquet mats with a thud. Servants scramble to bring them food, no intricate platters, no symbolic cuts, just meat. Charred, dripping, torn straight from the spit. This is dining as dominance. A server arrives beside you with a wooden bowl. Inside. A strange soup, murky, greyish, and flecked with what appears to be shattered bone. You stir it gently. Bits of marrow, maybe cartilage. It smells like smoke and thyme. It's chilpazontle, you're told, a warrior's bone broth, brewed from the remains of fallen enemies, or so they claim, mixed with wild herbs, roasted chilies and salt from sacred lakes. It's said to grant visions. Nightmares. You take a sip. It's gritty. Then you feel something slide against your tongue. Note. You swallow anyway. The nobles laugh, but not cruelly. More like they're watching a child taste their first tequila. You've earned a sliver of their respect. The high priests begin a chant now, low and rhythmic. The warriors echo back between bites, their mouths full, their voices thick. It's not exactly singing, more like growling in harmony. The sound vibrates in your ribs. And then comes the femur. Yes, an actual femur bone polished, bleached, and hollowed like a flute. A priest fills it with a mixture of cornmeal and roasted squash seeds, then hands it off like a prize. The recipient, a warrior missing part of his left ear, raises it to his lips and drinks. You turn away. Too slow. A server arrives with a smaller version just for you. It's warm, salty, texturally upsetting. You down it like a shot. Now, the dancers appear women in brilliant feathered skirts, their faces painted with spirals and jaguar spots. They swirl around the platform in rhythmic circles, weaving between the sprawled warriors and dozzing nobles. One of them flicks flower petals over your head. Another hands you a skewer of grilled heart meat, pierced with a toothpick carved from bone. The taste is iron-rich, almost tender. It melts on your tongue like burnt butter. And the mood? It's morphing again. This is no longer a banquet. It's a frenzy. A celebration of appetite, of conquest, of cosmic exchange. Food is flung into the fire as an offering, but also across the mat as a joke. A warrior tips his bowl onto a rival's head. Everyone roars with laughter. One of the priests begins juggling human skulls. You're not hallucinating. Probably. You try to focus on something grounded. A dish in front of you. Roasted maize crusted in ground ants and honey. Crunchy. Familiar. You chew like it's a lifeline. The emperor, still seated high above the others, remains composed. He doesn't indulge in the chaos. His meals arrive in silence, simple, elegant. A single tamale. A roasted fish. A few sips of cacao. He eats slowly, as though reminding everyone, even indulgence has its place. It's a strange juxtaposition. Below him, fire, blood dancing. Around him, silence. And in the middle, you've been here for hours now. Your sense of time has melted, like fat over coals. The stars have shifted above you. The drums beat slower. The warriors begin to drift, full and drunk and aching. One, sprawled beside a pile of bones, begins to sing a strange, wavering tune that sounds like a lullaby hummed through clenched teeth. You lean back, exhausted. Your belly is full of stories and strange meat. Your brain swims in source and symbolism. And tomorrow, the bones will be collected. The mats will be cleaned. The blood washed into the stone channels carved centuries ago. But tonight, you chew on history, on sinew and myth, on everything that once was sacred, revolting, and just maybe delicious. The dawn creeps closer, though the feast shows no signs of stopping. The stars have softened, replaced by a faint blue haze curling along the edges of the horizon. The drums have quieted, but still pulse now and then like a heartbeat that refuses to settle. You shift your weight, limbs heavy from too much food, too much drink, and far too much unspoken dread. Then, someone whispers a name that slices the air like obsidian, Totech. You feel the energy change. Totech, the flayed one, god of agriculture, renewal, and horrifying costume choices. A deity whose priests wore human skin like a second robe, believing that by shedding flesh, life itself could be renewed. It's grotesque. It's ritual. And it's dinner. The procession begins. Slow. Echoing. At first, you're not sure what you're looking at. Figures emerge from the temple, swathed in soft gold fabric and crowned with plumed headdresses. But as they draw closer, you see it. Beneath the finery, their skin doesn't move right. Uckers strangely at the joints. It stretches with each step. You realize if they're wearing someone else's skin. Historians still argue whether these skin garments were worn for hours, days, or even longer. Some records say they were kept on until they rotted and fell away naturally. Others insist they were ceremonially buried once the ritual ended. Either way, the effect is chilling. You don't just witness the ceremony. You smell it. The priests of Zyptotec circle the fire pit, their flayed garments shimmering with sacred oil. Their eyes are calm, their hands steady. In one hand, they hold a ceremonial blade. In the other, a dish. You know what's coming. The feast that honors the flayed one is not about indulgence. It's about transformation, about devouring pain and making it sacred. The night's menu features a dish called teocalli, the infamous corn tamale said to contain a bit of human flesh from honored captive warriors who offered themselves to the gods and in doing so became divine seasoning. You are handed one. It looks ordinary. A golden masa triangle, wrapped in green leaves, steaming gently in the cool night air. But the noble next to you offers a word of warning. Chew slowly. It's not what it seems. You bite. The taste. Familiar. Pour. Smoke. Killy. But then a richness. A depth of flavour that clings to your tongue. Something dense. Something mineral. You don't ask. This dish is shared with reverence. No jokes. No tossing food across the mat. Each noble eats quietly, solemnly, lips barely parting. Even the warriors hush now, their bloody armour resting in folds beside them. And then the masks arrive. You blink. The servants bring out dozens of delicate, dried face skins, carefully peeled and preserved. Like paper, like veils. These are passed around the table not to be worn now, but admired and honoured. A reminder, perhaps, of the person behind the meal. One priest places a mask on a small stone altar near the fire. He whispers a name you don't understand. The group bows. You do too, your forehead nearly touching your sticky obsidian plate. Then, as if cued by some cosmic signal, the nobles rise. Slowly, carefully. They walk in a circle around the fire, each placing a single offering into the flames: food, feathers, jewellery and, most unsettlingly, scraps of flayed skin. You remain seated, still chewing. Your legs won't move. A young woman, no older than 16, gently takes your hand and places a tortilla in it. It's ink black, soft, stamped with a glyph of Zyptotec's face, holes wide and hollow. You're expected to burn it. To complete the circle. You do. The flames hiss. The glyph curls and blackens. Smoke lifts into the pre-dawn sky. Then, silence. The priests step back. The dancers pause. Even the birds seem to hold their breath. And just like that, the feast moves on. Platters return. Dishes reappear. But now, the food is gentler. Sweet maize pudding. Honeyed pumpkin seeds. Tamales stuffed with figs and squash. Flowers. It's the aftermath feast, the one that closes the ceremony of pain. And yes, it's still a little weird. One dish features roasted gourd stuffed with wriggling mangy worms. Another is shaped like a human hand. But compared to what you've just seen, this is a lullaby. You eat slowly now. Respectfully. You think about the gods, about the skin, about the sacredness of flesh. You wonder what it means to eat someone in love, not in violence. To absorb their memory through your teeth. To wear their story like a robe of steam and spice. It's disgusting. It's divine. And here, on this mountain of blood and corn, it's dinner. You don't remember falling asleep, but you must, because now you're being nudged awake by the sound of clattering bones and the scent of something burning. Not wood. Not incense. Something muskier. A servant leans close and whispers, "Sampantli." You blink, bleary-eyed. The Festival of Skulls has begun. Of all the Aztec rituals you've witnessed so far, this might be the most visually jarring. Sure, you've seen blood chocolate, flayed priests, bone soup, but nothing quite prepares you for an entire banquet and around the dead, decorated with actual skulls. Hundreds of them. Strung on horizontal poles in long wooden racks, the skulls form walls of grinning bone that encircle the feast. These are the Tenochtitlan skull racks, harvested from the remains of war captives, ritual offerings, and possibly some unlucky volunteers who thought the priesthood might be an exciting career move. Historians still argue whether these racks were permanent fixtures or rebuilt for each festival. Some say they numbered in the thousands. Others suggest it was more symbolic, a terrifying billboard meant to discourage enemies and impress guests. One thing's for sure, you're impressed, and definitely discouraged from crossing the empire. But tonight, they're not warnings. They're decorations. Servants arrive with carved bone trays stacked with delicacies that are, how shall we say this, gastrointestinally adventurous. Your first dish, roasted turkey intestine stuffed with cactus pulp and crushed pumpkin seeds, garnished with edible marigolds. The noble beside you slurps one down like it's a noodle. You take a bite. It's chewy, tangy, and carries a disturbing echo of digestive memory. Next, a platter of Hutlikerchekorn fungus spread over toasted tortillas shaped like jawbones. The fungus is soft, black, smoky, kind of like truffle, if truffle were grown in nightmares and served under a dangling eyeball garland. And the drinks, a cloudy white pulque infused with fermented fruits and dusted with dried insect powder. Sweet, sour, fizzy, and utterly confusing. You sip it just to stay hydrated. Or maybe just to distract your mouth from the intestine texture still lingering on your molars. Then the music changes. It's not drums now, it's bones. Literally. Rib bones fashioned into xylophones. Femurs tapped like flutes. Even the occasional skull, used as a drum head. The beat is rhythmic, eerie, hypnotic. The dancers return. This time they're masked not with feathers, but with painted wooden visages of the dead. Their movements are jerky, skeletal, as if trying to mimic the stutter step of a body with no muscles. One dancer drops a bowl into your lap. It spills hot liquid onto your thighs. You yelp. She laughs. It's supposed to be funny. Inside the bowl, menudo Aztec, thick stew of cow stomach, chilies, lime, and you guessed it, blood. The broth is rich and dark. The chunks, soft but elastic, like biting into a sponge that screams. You chew. You swallow. You remind yourself, this is about reverence. And also about not vomiting on a ceremonial mat. A priest makes an offering to Tenochtitlan, god of the dead. He tosses a handful of bone meal and corn into the fire. The flames flare blue for a moment. The crowd murmurs approval. Then comes the main course. A massive gourd is split open to reveal layers of roasted meat, organ, stew, squash blossoms, and inexplicably a soft boiled egg nestled on top. It's called Tloltecutlis womb, a symbolic dish honouring the earth's cycle of death and rebirth. The presentation is stunning. The symbolism is rich. The flavour, let's just say it reminds you of wet moss, liver, and a hint of regret. And Noble explains that the egg represents the soul of the sacrificed. Eating it means honouring their memory. You chew slowly. It's oddly comforting, despite everything. Now, the nobles begin a dance. They rise and move in slow circles around the skull racks, holding small bone cups filled with black corn wine. With each step, they whisper names, some ancient, some recent. The dead are invited to dine, to listen, to join. You're handed a candle and told to hold it over your head. You comply. A gust of wind flickers the flame, then snuffs it out. Silence. For a moment, the entire feast pauses. Nobles, priests, dancers, everyone holds their breath. You hear it thinner rattle, softer, first, bones clinking, wind through teeth. Then, laughter. The moment has passed. The feast resumes. You're offered dessert, sweet corn cake shaped like a skull, filled with fig paste and topped with caramelized ants. You bite into the eye socket first. It's the least threatening entry point. It's shockingly good. And now, the mood is lighter again. Someone tells a joke about a noble who once sneezed into the skull of an enemy and got cursed with hiccups for a year. Everyone laughs. You pretend you get it. The Festival of Skulls, you realize, isn't just macabre. It's therapeutic. A reminder that death, in this world, isn't an end, it's a dinner guest, a dance partner, a flavour. And in honouring the dead, the living feel more alive, or at least very full. The glow of dawn now presses gently against the stone steps, but there's no sleep in sight. Not for the nobles. Not for you. Not for the fire, which crackles endlessly beside the feast as though fueled by hunger itself. A hush spreads. You barely notice it at first, just a subtle quieting, like someone turned the world's volume down one notch. Then a single, sharp note rings out, a conch horn. The servants reappear, and this time they carry no food, no goblets, no gourd bowls sloshing with dark liquids. Instead, they carry bundles wrapped in cotton cloth thick and heavy. They move carefully, reverently. This is the sacrifice snack stand. A strange title, maybe, but there's nothing light-hearted about what's about to happen. Where earlier feasts danced the line between disgusting and divine, this moment plunges headfirst into the most unsettling of Aztec customs, the merging of public death and private appetite. You're not a spectator, no, you're a participant. Historians still argue whether these snack stands were regular features of festivals or reserved for rare celestial alignments. Some say they were symbolic meals. Others suggest the elite truly consumed the flesh of those just sacrificed on the pyramid steps. What's not debated is how closely food and death intertwined here. The cloth bundles are unwrapped. Inside, warm flatbreads made with ceremonial corn. But unlike earlier tortillas, these are moist-soaked in a reddish liquid. A server offers you one. You hesitate. It's holy, he says gently, blessed with the life essence. He means blood, likely human. You take it with both hands. Before you can bite, a hush falls across the temple. The emperor rises. He walks slow, majestic, a literal procession of one to the altar, where a small fire pit still smoulders. There, a high priest offers him a bowl, carved from stone, filled with what looks like crimson syrup. The emperor dips a finger in and presses it to his lips, a gesture of unity with the gods. Then, another priest steps forward. He announces that the final offering has been completed. The divine body, he says, has been honoured. At that moment, the bundles open further. This time not bread but small, round cakes appear, shaped like limbs, organs, torsos. Not symbolic. Not playful. These are made from the real thing. The teocalli or god food, an offering transformed into flesh, then into food again. Roasted. Salted. Sliced thin. Your stomach twists. But the nobles, they lean forward with the reverence of monks at communion. They take a slice of divine meat with 2 fingers, place it gently atop the blood-soaked tortilla, fold it once, and eat. No sauces, no spices, no jokes, just chewing. You look down at your own bundle. A small, pale piece of meat rests on the bread like a secret no one wants to keep. You bring it to your lips. You chew. It's bland, slightly gamey, not terrible, but the weight of what it is makes every bite feel like swallowing a thunderclap. And then, it's gone. The emperor eats too, just one piece, followed by a sip of cacao so dark it borders on tar. The nobles raise their cups in unison. You follow. For a moment, the only sound is the crackle of the fire and the soft shuffle of feet as servants collect the remnants. No one lingers. No one talks, because this part isn't for conversation. You feel changed, not initiated, not enlightened, just changed, like a door has opened inside you that will never close again. Then a breeze rolls across the pyramid, lifting petals, dust and ash into the air. One of the nobles beside you exhales and says, "Now the gods are full." You're not sure if he means that metaphorically or literally. But suddenly, the mood shifts again. The silence breaks. Laughter trickles back in. Instruments resume their song. The servants return this time with lighter fare, corn chips with squash salsa, little cups of fermented papaya, flower nectar candies shaped like suns. It's the palate cleanser. You nibble politely, grateful for something that doesn't challenge your sense of self. Then comes the final surprise. A group of masked children enters the feast area, dressed in bright costumes with oversized feathered headdresses. They carry baskets filled with offerings from the commoners below, umble tamales, honey cakes, simple corn doles. They deliver them to the nobles, who accept the gifts with smiles and tokens of thanks, usually a handful of salt or a polished stone. This exchange, you're told, is symbolic, the shared burden of sacrifice. Even those who do not dine still participate in the feast. It's oddly sweet. Humbling. Humour. And as one child offers you a single roasted corn cob wrapped in palm leaf, you accept it like it's gold. You take a bite. Warm. Crunchy. Plain. No blood. No bone. No fear. Just corn. And for a moment, the world feels still. The warm corn lingers on your tongue, sweet, charred, blissfully simple. After the violent complexity of earlier dishes, it feels like a whisper instead of a scream. You chew slowly. You exhale. Then someone taps your shoulder. A noble, silver hair braided tight, motions for you to rise. No words, just a gesture. You follow. You're led down a sloping stone path that coils behind the temple platform, past small altars draped with marigolds, past painted skulls tucked into alcoves like forgotten houseists. The drums fade behind you. So does the chatter. Soon, it's just the wind and the occasional crunch of bone underfoot animal. You hope. Ahead, you spot a circle of nobles seated cross-legged around a low table. The atmosphere is hushed, private, sacred, but not ceremonial in the loud, performative way. This is something older, quieter, a place where nobles dine with the dead. Historians still debate the extent of ancestor worship among the Aztec elite. Some claim it was limited to seasonal festivals, like Tenochtitlan Little Feast of the Dead, while others argue it was woven into daily life rituals as regular as brushing your teeth. But the items laid before you suggest something far more intimate. On the table, polished bones arranged like tableware, small ceramic urns painted with names, incense sticks, a platter of bread made from ground bone meal and corn, and in the centre, a stack of tortillas, each wrapped around a sliver of meat and tied with dyed string. These were prepared with ancestral ash. One noble whispers, so they may join us, so we may taste what they've known. You're handed a tortilla. Your hands shake. It's soft, still warm. The meat inside is unfamiliar pale, fibrous, earthy. The noble explains it was cooked with marrow extracted from ceremonial bones relics stored in the palace crypts and ground into paste. Not quite cannibalism. Not quite not. You bite. It's chalky, almost powdery, but oddly comforting. Another dish arrives. A soup of maize and hibiscus petals, floating with what looks like teeth. No one confirms. No one denies. You slurp it slowly. Beside you, a noble pours a thick red sauce onto his dish. Blended with my grandfather's blood, he says with a wistful smile. Stored in a clay urn for 20 summers. He licks the spoon with a reverence that borders on erotic. You glance at your own plate and decide to skip the sauce. Nearby, a woman sings a soft lullaby. Her eyes are closed, her hands tracing invisible patterns in the air. You realize each noble here is speaking tone no one visible. They murmur names, fragments of memory, toasts raised to empty chairs. The dead have been invited to dine. You don't know what to say. So you whisper your own name, just in case someone's listening. Then comes the shared bowl. Passed hand to hand, it holds a stew made with black beans, maize syrup, bone marrow, and wild mushrooms harvested from sacred burial grounds. You hesitate. The noble beside you nods gently. This is how we remember, he says. You drink. It's rich, dark, warming, and something in you shifts. Not nausea, not fear, something else. As if, for a heartbeat, Someone else's memories pass through your throat. A flash of colour. The smell of old clay. A voice you've never heard before. Then it's gone. You sit in silence, overwhelmed, blinking into the smoky light. The final dish arrives. It's a small cake made of amaranth, shaped like a heart. Real heart. Symbolic. It's decorated with crushed rose petals and wrapped in a strip of cotton. It's meant to be eaten with your eyes closed. You obey. You chew. The sweetness coats your tongue. You breathe slowly. In the darkness behind your eyes, images flicker: processions, feathers, bone altars, rivers of maize. Or maybe just the tricks of exhaustion. But when you open your eyes, one of the nobles is staring at you. You see them now, he says. Don't you? You don't answer. Because maybe you do. The meal ends not with applause or final blessings, but with silence. Each noble stands, offers a slight bow to the centre of the circle, and walks away without a word. You do the same. You exit into the morning light. The wind is cool. The drums are faint. The platform feels far away. And as you return to your cushion beside the main feast, you realize something. This wasn't about food. This was communion. And you were the altar. The sun is fully up now, casting long, golden shadows across the temple courtyard, lighting the bone racks until they gleam like crooked pearls. The heat hasn't arrived yet, but the light is sharp, unforgiving. You squint as another round of dishes is carried forth. This time, the mood is mischievous. There's laughter bubbling from the nobles, now deep, relaxed belly laughs. The kind that come after too much wine and just the right amount of existential crisis. A nobleman with obsidian-lined eyes leans over to you, whispering, "Now we eat the strange things." You pause. You haven't been eating the strange things this whole time. She grins and points to the first dish, a bowl of grey paste served with green tortillas folded into the shape of animal faces. You poke it with your finger. It jiggles. She says it's made of fermented chicken agent, flying ants ground into a pulp with avocado pit, garlic, and a dollop of goat. Duh. Yeah. Duh. Very fertile, she adds, with absolute sincerity. Brings strength. You take a tiny taste. It's nutty, jerky, and earthy in ways you never asked for. You gag only a little. Historians still argue whether these fringe foods were daily staples or ritual novelties. What's clear is that the Aztec nobles enjoyed pushing the boundaries of what could be considered edibly and doing it with flair. Another platter arrives, fire-roasted scorpions skewered on cactus spines. The tails are curled, blackened, and coated in chili salt. They crunch loudly when bitten, like snapping into spicy gravel. You watch a young noble crush one between her teeth and sigh with contentment. Then comes the popocatli, a dish of mashed beans mixed with powdered tobacco, pulque, and... Wait, is that crushed bone? Here. Apparently human, added for divine protein. You're given a small wooden spoon and advised to eat it slowly to avoid mild paralysis. Great. You take one bite. It numbs your tongue. Instantly. You smile to disguise the panic. Now comes the big bowl. A bubbling stew with floating lumps of meat and small red fruits. You lean in. The server grins and says, "Monkey brains and gava. Very rare." You take his word for it. You skip that one. Across from you, two nobles argue over the best way to grill frog livers, whether they should be stuffed with pine resin or smoked with cinnamon bark. One of them suggests boiling them in ox urine to release the divine oils. You sip your water. Or at least, you hope it's water. Then comes dessert. Sort of. A thick custard, almost black, made from roasted maggie worms, cacao, and sweet potato. The top is dusted with ground teeth. Whose teeth? You don't ask. You dig in. It's surprisingly good. Another treat, sweetened tamales filled with corn fungus and honey-roasted beetles. The texture's a bit like granola mixed with chewing gum, but at this point, your standards have drifted out to sea. Now, the games begin. Not physical. Games, gustatory ones. A servant places 3 small cups before you. You're to taste each and guess which one contains roasted cricket milk, which is mashed axolotl liver, and which one is fermented human nail extract. You blink. You sip. Cup 1, nutty, sour. Cup 2, creamy, slightly sweet. Cup 3, tastes like metal and shame. You guess, and you're wrong on all counts. The nobles laugh. You laugh too, until someone hands you a 4th cup of courage. It's just hot pulque, spiked with what tastes like cinnamon and possibly despair. Then, the belly booster arrives. A stew made from lizard eggs, duck tongue, and fermented cactus slime. It's said to improve digestion after a night of excessive protein. You don't touch it. And yet, you notice something. As disgusting as these fringe dishes sound and are, they're celebrated. They are honoured. The nobles don't eat them on a dare. They savour them. They debate textures, regional variations, spice blends. It's haute cuisine with horror film ingredients. And you realise, for them, disgust isn't rejection. It's transformation. It's power. They eat these things not in spite of how unsettling they are, but because of it. To show they can. To show the gods they will. The noblewoman returns with one last offering, a chewy, glossy strip of meat wrapped around a roasted beetle and tied with a corn husk ribbon. You ask what it is. Tongue, she says. Probably human. Or maybe goat. Either way, very chewy. You take it. You chew. It's rubbery. It's spicy. It's weirdly satisfying. You swallow. You look around. Everyone's eating. Laughing. Offering each other bites of brain and spine and honey-grilled lava. And you. You reach for another scorpion. Because apparently, you've become one of them. A lull settles over the feast momentarily. You lean back, your body somewhere between stuffed and stunned, while a pair of nobles debates whether crushed moths or roasted larvae better complement fermented maize pudding. You just chewed your way through a jungle's worth of creatures, and now comes a different flavour of revelation, exclusivity. A servant arrives bearing a tall platter covered in bright green leaves. On top, arranged with ceremony, are small dishes that immediately cause a stir. Nobles murmur. Eyes widen. The scent sharp, earthy, intoxicating curls into your nostrils like a snake made of smoke and secrets. These, whispers the woman beside you, are not for peasants. She says it with a smirk. Not malice, just fact. Because this, as you're about to learn, is the course of forbidden foods. Historians still debate which ingredients were legally or culturally off-limits to commoners in the Aztec Empire. But for the nobility, culinary privilege wasn't just preference, it was law. And tonight, that law is deliciously on display. First, a delicate dish of Aztec lake-dwelling insects that form floating mats of eggs called a huortl or water caviar. These nutrient-dense spheres are sorted in chili oil and wrapped in squash blossoms. It's soft, salty, like fish roe crossed with popcorn. Only nobles may consume it regularly. Commoners caught eating it could be punished, even whipped. Then comes tilnancat or forbidden mushrooms, ale blue, silky to the touch, served raw over roasted maize cakes. They're rumoured to grow only on sacred grounds, sprouting near burial sites after lightning strikes. Some say eating them allows you to hear the ancestors. You pop one in your mouth. For a moment, the sky shifts colour. Then another dish arrives, toxcal fish. Pale, poisonous, and rumoured to be fatal in large doses. Carefully prepared by palace chefs, who know exactly which parts to trim. It's sliced into petals and glazed with agave nectar. You take a cautious bite. The meat is buttery, almost creamy, and then your tongue tingles. Too much, says the noble next to you, and you die hallucinating your own funeral. Cool. But this meal isn't just about danger, it's about separation. The divide between noble and peasant isn't just clothes or titles. It's flavours. It's the thrill of tasting something others aren't even allowed to see. Another course is placed before you, a roasted frog, butterflied and stuffed with toasted wild garlic, golden ant larvae and bone ash. It's tied shut with threads spun from agave fibres. You ask if this was ever eaten by commoners. The noblewoman shakes her head. Too sacred. Too rich. Too misunderstood. You nibble. It tastes like chicken that's read a few ancient prophecies and doesn't want to be eaten. Next, a platter of mushrooms soaked in rainwater collected only during eclipses. You're told they induce dreams of temples and talking animals. You sip one as a broth. It's earthy, bitter, and tastes like the smell of wet stone. Then come the Nahual egg, small, dappled quail eggs harvested from birds raised exclusively within palace walls. They're dyed with plant-based pigments and filled with a mouse made of fig, fish, and a fermented resin called teocalli. Banned from the common market due to their scarcity, they're eaten slowly, almost reverently. As you finish, a young noble clinks his bone cup against yours. You've eaten what emperors eat, he says. You've tasted power. Hair's not wrong. Then comes dessert, if you can call it that. A smooth custard made of boiled deer marrow, candied flower petals, and a drop of sacred obsidian dust, said to bring clarity of thought and protect against curses. The taste is mild, milky. The texture, like pudding scraped from the altar of a rain god. And finally, because even the gods need an after-dinner mint, a small pinch of black teocalli, an early form of vanilla, ground and mixed with cocoa powder and wild bee honey. It's rolled into a tiny pellet and left to dissolve under your tongue. You close your eyes. It hums, and then you hear it. Not words, not music. A memory that isn't yours. It fades quickly, but it leaves behind a trace of sweetness at the back of your throat and the strange knowledge that not all things forbidden are dangerous. Some are sacred. Some are just misunderstood. The nobles raise their cups again. To the forbidden, someone says. To what we must keep for ourselves, echoes another. You drink. Because you can. Because here, for tonight, you are not a peasant. You are one of them. And the taste of power. It lingers. The sun is overhead now, casting harsh shadows across the stone platform. The banquet mats are drying in the heat. You've been feasting for what feels like a lifetime, and just when you think your stomach can sulk and absorb another dish, a noble in a cloak woven with jade beads gestures for silence. He doesn't speak loudly. He doesn't need to. The room's sky almost tilts toward him. The wind hushes. The nobles fall still. He rises and says, "Now we dine with our enemies." The phrase hangs in the air like thunderclouds over still water. What follows is a series of dishes not meant for pleasure but for politics. This is the feast or famine course, where power is plated, where alliances are salted, where humiliation is served as a side dish. Historians still argue over the extent to which Aztec banquets functioned as political weapons. Some insist they were a form of ritualized diplomacy. Others believe they were tools of terror, designed to awe, shame, or punish. But tonight, you see it with your own eyes. First arrives a dish made entirely of leftovers, bones already picked clean, maize cakes partially eaten, a broken gourd cup mended with ash. It's handed to a visiting noble from a lesser city-state. He bows politely, but you catch the flicker of offense in his eyes. This is no accident. It's symbolic. You are only welcome here by our mercy. Meanwhile, seated across from him, the emperor receives a golden bowl filled with grilled quail, wild mango, roasted chilies, and axolotl eggs. The contrast is deliberate and brutal. You realize that each plate carries a message. The shallow bowl. You're out of favor. A cracked dish. You've made a political misstep. A heap of scorpions without honey glaze. Public rebuke. And the most humiliating. A plate with nothing at all. A silent indictment. You watch a merchant envoy from the north receive just that. He smiles, pretends not to notice, but his hands shake as he sips his pulque. The emperor raises a goblet, clear cacao spiced with gold leaf. He speaks just one line. All power is tasted, not spoken. And just like that, the feast resumes. Dishes arrive in waves now, each with a coded meaning. Tepech devora, fermented snake juice served to guests from enemy territories. It's bitter, sour, and considered a subtle insult. crushed cacao shells given to those seeking alliance, symbolizing the outer shell of a future bond. Liver stew with no seasoning, a cold shoulder in a bowl. Flavored arrowroot over obsidian shards, decorative, almost inedible, served with a smile to those who have disappointed. You're handed a bowl of zucatamalis or tamales laced with jalapeno and lime. A gesture of neutrality. No offense. No favor. A safe middle ground. You're weirdly relieved. Then comes a dish so elaborate it stops all conversation, roasted armadillo stuffed with maize blossoms, scorpion oil and obsidian-dyed salt. It's placed before a young noblewoman rumoured to be engaged to the emperor's cousin. Her plate is an announcement, a promotion, a crown. She doesn't even blink. Just slices into the meat with a calm smile. Then, the coup de grace. A dish covered with a silver lid is placed at the foot of the platform. The emperor rises and removes the cover himself. Inside, a mound of charred paper and feather stubble, infused with honey and chili. It's not for eating. It's for watching. It symbolizes rumors, gossip, noise. He lifts a single bite and places it on the fire. The nobles nod. Message received. And you. You sit still, unsure whether to chew or breathe. Because in this world, a bite can be a warning. A meal can be a message. And a dinner roll might just be a dagger. Then comes the dish for the foreign guest, strangers like you. A layered cake of amaranth, honey and spiced ash, cut into the shape of a rising sun. It's sweet. It's strange. It's a gesture of peace. You chew slowly, carefully, with gratitude. Because in the Aztec court, the dinner table is a battlefield. And survival means reading the plate before reading the room. The nobles raise their cups to peace, to power, to the flavors that conquer. The day wears on, the heat beating down on the ancient stone like a drum, and yet no one leaves. Not the nobles, not the priests, and definitely not you. Your eyes are sun-dazed, your limbs softened by pulp and power dynamics. Just when you think the feast has reached its apex, a hush ripples across the platform once more. The vomiting begins. It starts with a noble to your left, a small, discreet wretch into a painted ceramic basin. Then another across the way. The priest steps forward with a bowl, leans forward gracefully, and empties his stomach without flinching. You watch in horror. But here, this isn't shameful. It's expected. It's even ritualized. The Aztecs believed that purging was part of sacred indulgency, release of excess that made room for divine visions. To eat is to open the door. To vomit is to let the gods in. Historians still argue about the extent of ritual vomiting. Some accounts claim it was practiced at the end of major feasts to honor the gods with a clean vessel. Others say it was simply a pragmatic response to excess. You, however, are seeing it firsthand: ceremonial bowls lined with painted snakes, servants fanning those mid-purge, and nobles whispering prayers as they have. You cluck your stomach. You're not sure if you're spiritually ready for this step in the program. A priest offers you a small cup of a dark, gritty drink liltel. He says, a charcoal-infused herbal concoction meant to ease the expulsion. You sip it. It tastes like old rain and crushed medicine. You don't vomit. Not yet. But your stomach growls in protest, a twisting, hiccuping churn that sends sweat prickling down your spine. Then comes the vision course. A shallow bowl filled with Tenochtitlan divine mushrooms. Light grey, damp and slightly bruised, they rest in a thick, sour broth made from fermented cacao and agave pulp. They are not served with flair. There is no garnish. Just an invitation. The noble beside you says nothing as he chews. His eyes roll back slowly. He breathes deeply, palms pressed to the stone mat. You take one. The flavour is sharp metallic, like licking a wet coin. Your teeth feel suddenly too large for your mouth. Your vision narrows, then stretches, like the world is melting at the edges. Then comes the fire. Not literal internal. Your chest fills with warmth, then blossoms into heat, then breaks open into something stranger, You see the pyramid, but now it pulses like a living art. The nobles' faces blur. The skull racks glow. The wind sings. You are no longer just chewing. You are part of the feast. A dish. A guest. A ghost. A priest chants beside you. You feel his words in your ribcage. His naming gods you've never heard of, gods with syllables that buzz like insects. You begin to shake. Another noble leans over and presses a finger to your forehead. You'll be fine, he whispers. Just ride it. Don't try to stand up. Good advice. You lie back on your cushion, the world warping into a canvas of ancient sound and modern nausea. A nearby noble sings softly to a stone. Someone is sobbing into their pulp. The sun flashes. Then it's night again. Or maybe not. Time has lost its grip on you. Your mouth is dry. Your skin is singing. You see yourself as a stalk of maize, tall and golden, swaying beneath a sky of dripping fire. And then, just as suddenly, it's over. The mushroom mist lifts. You blink. Your cushion is damp. Your bowl is empty. The feast continues, but it's quieter now. The nobles are subdued, drowsy, transfigured. The servant arrives with cool water infused with lime and crushed mint. You sip gratefully. The flavors are sharp, clean, real. You realize that this part of the feast, vomiting, visions, vulnerability, isn't an accident. It's the turning point. The gods have been honored. The body pushed to its limits. Now, it's time for rest, for reflection. Someone hands you a soft cake made of sweet potato and honey. You take it with trembling fingers and chew slowly. Each bite is like sinking back into yourself. The emperor hasn't moved. You remain still atop his seat, eyes half closed, one hand resting on a bowl of flowers. He, too, has been somewhere else. The drums return slow now. A heartbeat. And you. You're still here. You made it. The drums fade into the background, no longer booming declarations but soft echoes like footsteps in a temple after the crowd has gone home. The nobles recline now, draped in cushions and layered in drowsiness, their once sparkling eyes now glazed with satisfaction or spiritual fatigue. The fire has dimmed. The heat has softened. And at last, the final course is served. Not a dish, but a memory. A servant brings forth a single platter, placed not on the emperor's dais or before the highest priest, but at the very center of the temple platform. It holds a golden bowl of steaming broth, a modest loaf of amaranth bread, and a scattering of flower petals, blue, white and red. No one moves to eat it. No one dares. This, you realize, is the final noble feast, a symbolic meal, untouched, offered in silence. It's not for the living. It's for memory. Historians still debate what the last great feast of the Aztec Empire looked like. Was it opulent and defiant in the face of conquest? Was it sacred and sorrowful? Was it, like this, a soft murmur of tradition before a tidal wave of change? No one knows for sure. But in this moment, you feel it. A noble beside you begins to recite the names, not loudly, more like breathing them. Montezuma, Hutliurak, Blacalal. Names of leaders, warriors, scholars, names that have become bones in the soil and echoes in the food. Others join in. A slow ripple of remembered names. Then comes the final drink, a small clay cup filled with liquid obsidian, a thick, syrupy blend of cacao, sap and smoke. You're told it's meant to close the stomach, to lock away everything you've consumed so it may become a part of your history. You drink. It's bitter. It lingers. It burns slightly. But you swallow every drop. The fire is now coals. The food is gone. Even the skull racks seem to watch you with softened eyes. A few nobles does, their heads lolling on feather pillows. One continues to hum. Another plucks at a tiny harp made from jawa, sinew and bone. The emperor stands. He speaks only once. We have feasted. We remember. Then he leaves. No fanfare. No parade. Just silence and the long shadow of a fading empire stretching behind him. Remain on your cushion, your fingers sticky with honey and ash. Around you, the colours of the feast are dulling, petals drying, bowls empty, breath slowing. You look up. The sky is the same. Wide, blue, silent. The gods are quiet now. Or maybe just listening. You rise slowly. Your joints ache. Your belly hums. Your mind is full not just with food, but with stories, spirits, and the lingering presence of those who came before you, who ate before you, who vanished before you. The wind shifts. It carries the scent of flowers, faint as a sigh. And finally, you rest. The temple now sleeps beneath a heavy sun, its shadows long and soft, the sacred stone cooling under the breeze. The skulls, no longer grim, they seem peaceful now, bone remnants of a culture that celebrated death as much as life. You lie back onto your cushion, the echo of the feast slowly fading from your limbs, leaving behind only warmth and a strange sense of awe. All around you, the remnants of the ritual settle, like dust, half-burnt incense, flower petals clinging to the seams of your robe, the faint hum of someone humming an old lullaby in the distance. You close your eyes and listen not to the drums, or the chants, or even the wind, but to the silence beneath it all. A silence that has existed since long before the first maize seed was planted or the first bone knife was raised. You've tasted power. You've tasted history. And now you return to yourself, full and still. Let the visions fade. Let the fire cool. Let the stars blink lazily back into place above the pyramid. Tonight, you are part of something vast, something ancient, something disgusting, divine, and utterly unforgettable. So breathe slowly now, deeper, slower. Let each breath soften the sharp edges of memory. Let the taste of sacred corn and bitter chocolate drift away like smoke. Let your thoughts become whispers. And as sleep begins to reach for you, gently, like a priest with a warm bowl of flowers, remember this was only a story. But oh, what a feast it was.